You smashed the snooze button. That feeling of being perpetually underslept? A defining struggle of modern life. We chase that elusive 8 hours, told it's the golden ticket to health, productivity, and happiness. But what if I told you that the entire idea of one long, unbroken stretch of sleep is, well, weird? What if, for most of human history, people didn't sleep like that at all? Imagine a world where it was completely normal, even expected, to wake up in the dead of night, get out of bed, and just hang out for an hour or two before going back to sleep. Not because you had insomnia, not because a baby was crying, but because that was just how you slept. Sounds alien, right? Like something out of a bizarre science fiction novel. But this wasn't some strange ancient ritual. This was the sleep pattern of kings and commoners, farmers and philosophers, for thousands of years. From the dawn of civilization right up until the last couple of centuries, our ancestors lived by a different clock. They experienced what historians call biphasic sleep, or more commonly, segmented sleep. They had a first sleep and a second sleep, and in between, a period of quiet wakefulness, often called the watch. So the big question is, why did they do this? And what on earth did they do during those midnight hours? And perhaps even more importantly, what does their ancient sleep tell us about our own modern struggle to get a good night's rest? This isn't just some fringe theory. The evidence is scattered all through history, hiding in plain sight. Take Homer's Odyssey, for example, written nearly 3 millennia ago. Odysseus' wife, Penelope, describes spending long nights weaving, and then, in another part, diaries, court records, medical texts, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. A 16th century English doctor, Thomas Cogan, wrote about the best time to study being between your first sleep and your second sleep. People weren't just describing it, they were scheduling their lives around it. So, what exactly did this look like? Picture this. As the sun dips below the horizon, and the stars begin to pepper the inky black sky, life starts to slow down. Without electric lights, even a candle was an extravagance for many. Darkness wasn't just the absence of light. It was a profound, inescapable presence. People would typically go to bed around 9 or 10 p.m. They'd sleep for about 3 to 4 hours, what they called their first sleep. Then, somewhere around midnight or 1 a.m., they'd simply wake up. Naturally. No alarm clock. Their bodies were just wired for it. For an hour, maybe 2, they'd be wide awake. And they didn't just lie there staring at the ceiling. This was a time for reflection, prayer, quiet work. Some would stoke the fire, tend to a sick child, a quiet period when the demands of the day were suspended. When couples would conceive children, after this period of quiet activity, they'd slip back into bed for their second sleep. Another 3 to 4 hours, waking up with the sun, ready to face the day, deliberate break in the middle of the night. The answer, it turns out, is deeply rooted in truly dark. This long, continuous stretch of one theory suggests that the first sleep was a deep, then the wakeful period allowed for the mind to process, to consolidate memories from the day, almost like a natural defragmentation X of the brain's hard drive. The dreaming, the deeper emotional processing, might have dominated. It's like your brain had a little interlude, a scheduled break to make sure everything was properly filed away before the final push of rest. Think of it like a long-haul truck driver hella taking a mandatory break halfway through their journey. They don't just drive for 14 hours straight. They drive for 7, pull over, maybe stretch their legs, grab a coffee, and then hit the road for another 7. But the environment played an even bigger role than biology. The biggest factor, without a doubt, was the absence of artificial light. Before Thomas Edison and widespread electric grids, the night was truly dark and long. The sun dictated everything. People didn't have Netflix to binge, or social media to scroll through, or emails to answer at 2 a.m. When darkness fell, there wasn't much to do but sleep. This meant going to bed earlier, often by 9 p.m. That allowed for a full 8 to 9 hours of total sleep even with the hour or two in the middle. The transition away from this segmented sleep pattern is a relatively recent phenomenon, coinciding almost perfectly with the Industrial Revolution and the proliferation of artificial light. When factories started running 24/7 and work hours extended beyond daylight, the idea of a fixed, segmented sleep became inconvenient. Streetlights and home lighting pushed back bedtimes. The notion of a workday and a night became more rigid. There was a deliberate cultural push past towards a single unbroken block of sleep. Suddenly, waking up in the middle of the night wasn't a natural occurrence. It was a problem. It was a symptom of insomnia, something to be cured. And so, over the course of just a few generations, a sleep pattern that had served humanity for millennia was erased from our collective memory, becoming an odd historical footnote. This shift has profound implications for how we understand sleep today. If our bodies are, in some ancient underlying way, still wired for segmented sleep, could our modern sleep problems, the tossing and turning, the midnight awakenings, the anxiety about not getting enough unbroken sleep, be a direct result of us fighting our natural inclinations? Think about it. How many of us wake up at 3 a.m., heart racing, mind churning, desperate to fall back asleep? We label it as insomnia, a disorder. But what if, for our ancestors, that exact same experience was just Tuesday? What if that mid-sleep wakefulness isn't a bug in our system, but a feature we've simply forgotten how to use? There's some fascinating modern research that actually backs this up. In the early 1990s, psychiatrist Thomas Ware conducted an experiment where he subjected a group of volunteers to a natural light cycle, 14 hours of darkness per day, for a month. No alarms, no artificial light after sundown. And what happened? Within a few weeks, almost all of them reverted to a segmented sleep pattern. They slept for about 4 hours, woke for an hour or two, and then went back for another 4 hours. They reported feeling rested, calm, and even more creative during their midnight wakefulness. It was as if their bodies, given the right conditions, instinctively remembered this ancient way of sleeping. This suggests that our modern obsession with an unbroken 8-hour stretch might be fighting against something deeply ingrained in our biology. We're telling ourselves that if we failed, but maybe, just maybe, that waking period is our body trying to do what it has done for thousands of years. Give us a moment of quiet processing, a chance to reflect, before diving back into the final segment of rest. Could we, in our frantic pursuit of an idealized, unbroken sleep, be causing ourselves more stress than if we simply embrace the occasional midnight interlude? So, did our ancestors sleep better? It's not about comparing who had more hours or who felt more refreshed, because those are subjective. It's about recognizing that their relationship with sleep was fundamentally different. They lived in harmony with the natural cycles of light and dark, allowing their bodies to dictate the rhythm. We, on the other hand, have bent our bodies to the demands of a 24/7 electrified world, often at great cost to our well-being. The next time you find yourself staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., instead of fighting it, maybe pause. Consider the possibility that you're not broken. You're just echoing a sleep pattern that was the norm for virtually every human who came before us. Perhaps instead of reaching for your phone or panicking about the lost sleep, you could simply lean into that quiet, reflective space. What could you do in those stolen hours? Pray, meditate, read, plan your day, or simply enjoy the unique stillness of the middle of the night. In a world constantly demanding our attention, perhaps the greatest lesson our ancestors can teach us is the profound value of a quiet, intentional pause, even in the heart of darkness. What if embracing the two-shift truth isn't about perfectly replicating ancient sleep, but about finding a more natural, less anxious rhythm for our own modern lives?